Thank you all for joining us for our Lunch in the Know. We'll be delving into safe, hot, safe, affordable IT for small businesses. So that is really exciting for small businesses. So with us today, we have Jeff Kimbrough, who is VP of Banking at Independent Bank. Jeff, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining today's event. Again, I am Jeff Kimbrough with Independent Bank. I'd actually like to get started just by thanking the Small Business Council for continuing this Lunch in the Know series, especially over the past couple of years. Even though we have not been able to visit in person, I'm extremely delighted to be able to continue this series virtually. Over the years, we have developed great partnership with our friends at the Chamber. And for all of you, Patricia, Amy, Miss Dottie, if you're listening, Miss Beverly, Tanja, thank you guys. Your entire team has been great. And I truly feel that we're getting closer and closer to that in-person Lunch in the Know so we can all see each other again. But as title sponsor for this lunch series, thank everyone for joining us. If we can be of service to you or your business, let's connect. I will put my contact information in the chat, and one of our team members will be glad to connect with you as well. So again, thank you for joining us, and hope that you enjoyed today's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And yes, we are indeed looking forward to being in person very soon. I do want to mention our additional partnership that is United Healthcare, and they are helping small businesses access affordable health coverage for their employees. So we thank them so much. They were unable to be with us today, but definitely wanted to give them a shout out. I want to just say thank you again to everyone for joining us, and for any small business council think tank members that we have out there. They are the fuel behind our programming. They connect with us once a month and help us determine what those topics should be to better serve our small businesses. So thank you, think tank members, for all of the hard work that you do. And now I have the extreme pleasure of introducing our moderator for today. Lachelle Vaughn is an expert in information technology and holds over 35 years of experience in client management, application development, data center operations, network services, and security and compliance operations. Prior to joining Memphis Light, Gas, and Water in 2011, she served as Vice President of Information Technology for Hilton Worldwide. Lachelle currently is responsible for managing information technology services, data security, client services, and enterprise resources support at MLG&W. Lachelle, I want to turn the floor over to you, and thank you so much for moderating today.
Patricia, thank you so very much for that warm introduction. I am just delighted to be here today. When you guys asked, I quickly said yes. One, because of who you are. You are the chamber, and you are our glue and connection to the world. But the Small Business Council is just near and dear to me, because at the end of the day, small businesses run the world. And so we're going to come and have some conversation with our very distinguished panel today. And they're going to share a presentation and just chat with us a bit about technology in the small business world. Our first panelist, Patrick Tamburino. He is the president, an information technology strategist, and virtual CIO at Tamburino Incorporated. As CIO at Tamburino Incorporated, Patrick established Tamburino in 2008. He brought an experienced resume that includes management of nationwide network and telecommunication operations, disaster recovery operations, and has managed budgets for companies whose annual revenue exceeds $4 billion. His area of expertise includes IT strategic planning, contract negotiation, IT procurement, IT budget creation and management, IT support, Google Workspace, Apple and Cisco Meraki implementation and customization. Our next panelist is Joe Cottrell. Now, Joe Cottrell comes from AT&T Global Business. He is the Director of Strategy and Innovation. Joe leads innovation partnership programs and assists with engineering best practices, industry trends, and business solutions. He also provides technical and business updates on AT&T's emerging technologies for customers, briefings, and industry groups. His current area of focus includes the 5G use cases, internet service, integrated network platform, patient outcome, and equitable access to healthcare. And then our third panelist is Mr. Chris Yancey. He's the Security and Solution Advisor for ProTech Services Group. As the Security and Solution Advisor for ProTech Services Group, Chris provides end-user training on various solutions, including Microsoft Office 365 and online security awareness. He assists customers in getting the maximum value from solution and helps identify areas in which clients can utilize additional services. It is my honor and pleasure to allow these three very talented, distinguished panelists to come and present their presentation for their specific businesses. We will begin with Patrick Tamburino. Patrick, take it away.
Thank you, Lachelle, and thank you to the Chamber for inviting me to participate as a panelist. I'm very excited about it. I don't really do a presentation in terms of slides or anything like that, so it's going to be me talking. But when we were discussing some of the items that we thought would be valuable to present in this forum, we were talking about things that small businesses could have done and should be doing in terms of enabling remote capabilities and also staying secure. Obviously, back in early 2000, I don't think that anybody really knew what was going to hit us with the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was somewhat of a surprise that we all ended up having to lock down as much as we did. But we did, and there we were. So what I'd like to talk about is how we worked with our customers even prior to that to ensure that their systems were remotely accessible but also secure. One of the primary methods that we enable our customers with is remote access capabilities. I mean, I think prior to 2000, we had some customers who had sort of cloud-based file management systems that were in place. Those are very much more prevalent now than they were then. A lot of companies, I think, adopted those out of necessity. But still, a lot of companies had to continue to access their legacy systems. So prior to the pandemic, thankfully, through our strategic methods and everything that we use, we enabled those companies for remote support ahead of time. We didn't know that it was coming. It just happened to be a trend that we recognized. And so I'm sorry, I've got to wake up my monitor here, you guys. Technical difficulties as usual. All right. So anyway, we enabled VPN access for almost all of our customers prior to when lockdown happened, and it all came very quickly. So that was one of the things that we enabled for our customers. Another item that was very important was cloud-based collaboration. Most companies had already, that we worked with anyway, had already either begun adopting or had already adopted cloud-based collaboration, which includes things as Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. It used to be called Google Apps back in the day. They have also made some changes and enhancements to their systems. So when everybody went to lockdown, our first order of business with most companies was to figure out a way to allow those people that were not accessing things remotely to do so. Thankfully, that infrastructure was already in place most places, and it required some workstation configuration, but we were very busy. During the lockdown, we observed and enhanced, we observed a greater need for remote access to server-based systems, and we enhanced access to that. In some cases, we had to replace some VPN appliances and firewalls and things of that nature. And thankfully, we made it through. All of our customers were able to work remotely. Some of them still snuck into the office every once in a while. I'm sure that some of you were probably doing that too if anybody else wasn't around. But by and large, through the use of simple VPN connections and through online collaboration systems such as Google and Office 365, most companies were able to continue working. Moving forward, what we are really trying to focus on and trying to get out in terms of what's necessary is we have now this hybrid workforce that has evolved. And the hybrid workforce requires people to, not requires, but enables people to work from home part of the week, and they work from the office part of the week. That in and of itself presents some interesting challenges. Everything from, do I have a large monitor that I can use at home to, do I have an external keyboard, or do I even have a laptop? Some people didn't have laptops before. Now, I would say at least 80% of the fleet that we manage has laptops. So that was another big change that happened during the 2 years that most companies were out of the office. Excuse me. Looking forward to the future, however, we have concerns around how do we make sure, A, that files that people are working on are stored in the correct place. Road warriors especially have a tendency to save a lot of files right on their laptops. Their laptop hard drive might crash, and then what happens? Pretty much now everybody's a road warrior. So thankfully, we had worked with a lot of those types of people in the past and learned some lessons from how they work. We suggest a simple suite of tools to help keep things secure when you're in a mobile situation. If you're working from home, you're obviously not behind your company's firewall, so your system could be exposed to malware, potential malware risks and things of that nature. And again, your files may not be backed up on your local hard drive, and if you're not saving things to your corporate network somehow, that presents a challenge. So in terms of a hot new topic, none of these are really hot new topics, I don't think. I think they're things that have been around for a long time, but they're things that you can stack together to provide a complete solution to help protect those mobile users. Number one is what's called a DNS protection client. And what a DNS protection client does is it acts kind of like a little shield that floats around on top of your laptop virtually, and anywhere you go to work, it can help protect your computer from acquiring malware. It acts like a corporate firewall, but it's a piece of software that follows your computer around. That's one stack suggestion that we recommend. We can do, anyone can implement that, and anyone can implement policies within that DNS protection, which will prevent people from accessing sites that your corporate policy does not allow, which is often a common practice. And it also prevents malware from even entering into your system. So that's a nice tool to use. Another tool that we like to stack on top of that is an online backup agent on every computer, because even if people are saving files into a system such as Microsoft SharePoint or Google Drive, or even to your company server via your VPN connection, a lot of times people don't want to mess with that. You know, they'll get the files that they need, they'll get to work on them, they'll email them out to people, and they might not save them back where they need to be right at first. And especially during the pandemic, during lockdowns, when everyone was really at home most of the time, there was a lot of stuff going on that IT departments and corporate departments could not keep track of. Their employees were saving things all over the place, and that's a big challenge. So, you know, those types of things have to be determined by the company. What is your policy and how are those things to be saved? But in the meantime, what your IT group or vendor can do to help protect whatever files are on those computers is just to simply back those computers up. There are a lot of different products available out there where you can just load it on your computer and it will take complete backup of your computer, either continuously or several times a day. So in case that hard drive crashes, your corporate data is not at risk of being lost. And so those are some things that you can do on the workstation. And another tool that's probably available to almost everybody on whatever system you're using, this gets more into a security standpoint, so I'm going to defer to another panelist on some of these things, but that is using multi-factor authentication. And you all have probably heard of that. You're all probably already using it in some cases. It's incredibly annoying to use. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. It's hard to use. You got to keep your phone handy. It's definitely not as easy as just being able to log in. But I will say that our observation has been, especially in the past couple of years, with the increased usage of online collaboration systems such as 365 and Google Workspace, it is much easier for people to hack into those systems. So we highly recommend that part of your security and your mobile office stack also includes two-factor authentication. It is absolutely, I think, not even optional at this point. I think that if you're not using that, you're putting your own data and your company's data at a tremendous amount of risk. And I guess the last thing I would suggest as a good thing to do would be to make sure that you align yourselves with the proper people who have the knowledge about how to implement these things, be that a vendor or your internal IT department. But I think that focusing on security is absolutely number one. And that can help you both with the mobile workforce and also with the people that are going back and forth. In terms of your corporate network, many of you probably already have those fairly well secured, but if you do not have some sort of a firewalling system with content filtering and intrusion detection and intrusion prevention features, you need to get on that. So that would be my advice to everyone. So that's kind of my general presentation here, and I know that we've got some Q&A coming up fairly soon. I'm not sure if I'm a little bit short on time or long on time, but I will defer to Lachelle.
Hey, you know what? You're gonna have to give me 30 more seconds because I'm writing down all this good stuff. This was for someone else. Oh my God, how fabulous! Hey, Patrick. So my notes, and I hope that the audience is taking notes. You absolutely have got to be taking notes. You know, the things that he talked about, your DNS protection client floating around, acting like a firewall on your laptop so that when you're sitting outside in the yard enjoying the spring, you're still protected. Your online backup agent, making sure that you've got a company policy. I think he used the word, it's critical that you back up those computers either completely or continuously. Continuously, I love because it feels like I'm covered. Multi-factor authentication. He said two-factor is just not an option. You know, one of the things that I hear a whole lot in our industry is two-factor, something you have, something you know. What's also coming is who you are and where you are. So we're going to have to increase this thing, and we're going to hear more about security if we're going to be protected. We are literally in cyberspace. absolutely all of us. Then he said something about proper staff, proper technical knowledge, whether it's your team or the team that you're hiring. Make sure that you've got that, because at the end of the day, he said, focus on security. It is absolutely number one. Looking at what's coming to you, content filtering, and who's coming to you, intrusion detection. Patrick, this was absolutely fantastic. So I think we're good, but we're going to move on a bit and allow the opportunity for Joe to come to us. And Joe, again, is Director of Strategic and Innovation, Strategy and Innovation. Sorry, Strategy and Innovation. Joe
I'll
Cottrell,
take it either way, Lachelle.
AT&T Global Business. Take it away.
All right, thanks. So yeah, I'm going to maybe expand this out a little bit and put up some slides as I talk to you guys, and talk about some of the ways that this IT infrastructure is going to look, and break it down into a few different categories as well. So to start with, what I'd like to do is to talk about how things have changed, how the way businesses connect has changed, and we really don't need to belabor that because it's like all we've talked about for so long. But there are lots of requirements now that are network related. So everything is connected, but the way we do business is connected too. And it doesn't matter how small the business is. If there's some aspect of digital marketing or working from the residence, or all of these different things that are happening now, that involves making sure that your connectivity is secure, and a part of that security comes with making sure that it's reliable. There is something that we see sometimes when dealing with small and medium businesses, and that's that AT&T will provide a circuit or a connection, and in some cases there may not be specific IT knowledge on how to implement or how to support that. So much like you've already heard, it's important to make sure that you've got smart people there that know what's important to your business, but also take advantage of some kind of partnership too. So if there's an IT partner, in fact, many times we suggest local IT partners when it comes to implementing some of these network technologies, just to make sure that it's meeting your business requirements and not just plumbing, because you're going to need that information and that support on day two. Breaking this down into 4 categories, some of the infrastructure that we provide for small business, I like to think of it as mobility, fiber/internet, traditional wired interconnectedness. Voice is certainly a big part of what we provide as well. And then that security and that reliability, that it's also going to be there when you need it. So when it comes to a lot of these solutions, we do recommend that you try to leverage managed solutions these days where possible. We've all been doing this a long time, and it used to be that you had to get your own router and you had to have somebody configure how it connects and the IP addresses and all of that. Make sure your smart people are somewhat knowledgeable about how that works, but they move up the stack and they work on the problems associated with the business and not necessarily trying to figure out how to get around a circuit outage or some type of issue like that. When we talk about these 4, I want to talk about mobility first. You may think of mobility as the phone in your pocket, or even a tablet, and that certainly is a big way that we do business these days. But also mobility and wireless networks have turned into broadband networks as well. So we see locations that use that for connectivity, in addition to maybe more traditional in the ground wiring to connect your business back to the rest of the world. And also, Internet of Things has really been rising over the past decade, and we see a lot of that. I think by far we're the largest provider of Internet of Things connectivity, But what's interesting about that is that you don't have to deploy a million IoT devices to get value from that. You could deploy a couple of standalone cellular trackers with very long battery life on pieces of expensive equipment so that you know where they are. And sometimes that's helpful if they tend to walk away. Sometimes it's helpful if you just have an important need for that piece of equipment on a specific job. But there's also another interesting cellular network out there. So you think of AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, but there's also a network called FirstNet. And this doesn't really apply to everybody, but the network that is FirstNet is the First Responder Network Authority. It's a federal government network, and we have the contract to deploy that for the federal government. And as a result, AT&T can find ways to get your business onto FirstNet if you have eligible job roles or eligible use cases. And in the local area, we've got a couple of local truck companies, security companies, even construction companies, but specifically healthcare, which is where I tend to work most of the time. There are specific use cases that may allow those devices to get onto the FirstNet authority. So as a bit of homework, if that sounds interesting, go out and look up FirstNet. I could get into a little more detail about it in the Q&A if it's appropriate, depending on the questions we get. But it may be a great way to connect mobile devices with no throttling and priority on the network to make sure that those data streams get through when they do need to get through. So it's not just phones, it's connecting locations and devices, and also mission critical use cases and job roles. The other category I talked about earlier was fiber, as we call it at AT&T, but traditional in the ground wiring. And that's starting to merge with the mobile wireless networks as well as a way to connect locations to each other. Specifically in a security sense, you may have heard of software-defined networks, or SD-WAN for software-defined wide area networks. So if you have multiple locations, it certainly is a great way to not only have that service be managed that connects those different locations together, but also ways to bring in residential connections into the same network and do it in a secure way. We're starting to see the next generation of that, which is called SASE, which I'll touch on a little bit on my last slide. But there are hooks in there for performance optimizations. You can have cellular and in the ground wiring and path optimization to know how to get the data traffic from your location to the cloud or to your other locations or in and out of the residences. And that can be done with dedicated internet fiber or even AT&T broadband fiber, which would be sort of analogous to what the fiber may look like that's going to your home. The last category I won't spend a lot of time on, but it's the more traditional voice services we have, but now they're not traditional under the hood. They're all hosted services. They write across traditional or modern day IP data networks. There's a big importance on making sure that the mobile experience and chat and video and all of those things talk to each other. So that is a big part of our business, but under the hood, it looks a lot different these days. And there is a lot of security that has to go along with that. There's transmission security, of course, but also the data centers where these services are hosted meet the physical and infrastructural environmental security requirements. There's fraud, there's HIPAA, there's all of these other regulations that are approved and have to be a part of those types of infrastructure. So as far as security, it actually makes it a little bit easier on the end user to give that voice infrastructure to a cloud service where they are staying on top of the security associated with that. And I know we've got Chris hitting cleanup to get into some real security details, but I wanted to talk about one of the other things we do as well across the globe, and there's a lot of security in what we do. And you've already heard Patrick mention firewalls and DDoS, intrusion detection, firewalls, those kinds of things. This continuum on the left is really starting to get to be a confusing mix of acronyms. And so as you start to move your important stuff to the cloud, you're going to also see a need for lots of security. And those guys are hard to hire, they're hard to retain. And at some point, if you have a vulnerability, you can think of any vulnerability as the same thing as an exploit. So you're going to need that same level of protection when it comes to those kinds of things. So it's not always feasible to have that super propeller head on staff to watch over your security, but you need to have somebody who's very aware of the security and know where to go to get those types of services. So similar to what I started with, look to find those trusted partners who can do some of those security functions for you. Thanks. And Lachelle, that's the end of my talk track. So I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Hey, listen, Joe, this is incredible. I hope that the audience is listening close to the information that the two of you guys have provided. Again, you know, I had to turn over on the back side of my paper now. You've been talking about the fact that things have changed. And so when you said that, immediately a song comes to mind. You know, it says, everything must change. Nothing stays the same, right? Then you went on and said, we're all connected. And you threw out the residents and businesses. And if we didn't see this in the last 2 years, we are so tightly connected. It is just unbelievable. You said that connection must be reliable. Smart people who know what's important to your business are the ones that you want to hire so that they can maximize the technology offering and investment for your business. This stuff is not cheap. And so you want to get the most for it. You talked about mobile wireless, internet, voice being secure and reliable. No more party lines for AT&T. No more listening in. You said this is how we are communicating today. Mobility, phone, tablet, wireless broadband network, in the ground as well, Internet of Things, battery operated devices, not just go find my keys, but everything in between. You talked about the FirstNet and it being for first responders, critical resources to your community. Memphis Light Gas and Water is on FirstNet, giving us the ability to ride above the traffic. Oftentimes, we think about we're in a critical situation. It might be that we're simply down on Bill Street, that the Grizzlies are playing, and everybody is there. We want the police and fire and utility to be able to talk in the midst of all of that excitement. And so when everybody's got their phones on their video and they're sending, we want the police and fire, utility, hospitals to be able to talk. I loved it when you said, and this is what I heard you say, in the ground, technology meets in the air. Made me think of Superman. Software defined networks. Can you imagine, for those of you who've been around for a while, it was always go dig up my yard, but not so. We can leap over tall buildings and keep your software defined network connected. Cloud-based collaboration, mobile video, chat, all the stuff that we're doing. He said that your data center, if you have such a thing, but it must be hardened and it must meet regulations. There are costs, dollars to be paid when that data is not secure. But the most important thing that he said, and I heard, is that these highly skilled security resources are very expensive. You can grow your own, but you better keep them kind of close to your vest because they are paid tremendous dollars to go and try to secure the world. Listen, let me just tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. I'm going to leave some time so that we might bring up Chris Yancey, the Security and Solution Advisor for Protect Services Group. Chris, what do you say?
Man, I've got to follow these two guys. I'm not sure what I can add to that, but I will do my best. But I appreciate you all having me, the Small Business Council, for inviting me. I know that ProTech Services Group has had a long-lasting relationship with the chamber for years, so I really appreciate being invited on the panel today. So, with that being said, when it comes to talking about security with a lot of small businesses, a lot of small businesses don't have a robust IT department. In a lot of cases, the small businesses that I know of here in Tennessee, here in Memphis, a lot of those owners are the IT department. You know, they are the IT expert. So when I talk about cybersecurity, and keep that in mind, that it doesn't immediately, my mind doesn't immediately go to hardware and software all the time. I like to think about things on a more educational basis with a lot of small businesses, being that they may not have an extensive IT department. So when I think about cybersecurity, I think about things that small businesses can really implement today, right now. And that's a discussion with their employees, basically. So that's kind of where I want to come from. I know that Patrick and Joe have done an excellent job talking to you from a technical standpoint, but I want to bring like an educational piece to the table as well, because I think that's something real world that a lot of employers can have with their employees right now today. So right now, ransomware is a huge problem for everybody. Small businesses, medium businesses, large corporations. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be a sole proprietorship like my daughter is. You still got to look out for ransomware. It is a huge problem, especially now that the Ukraine-Russia conflict has escalated now. So, you know, we're getting at least the amount of, you know, traffic or internet traffic from as far as ransomware or data breaches from Russia has increased about 800% since that conflict started. So it's really something to pay attention to. 55% of small businesses out there end up paying the ransom after they get hit with ransomware. So now you've got things like ransomware insurance that a lot of companies can look at. But again, with the amount of ransomware traffic that's happening, those insurance requirements have gone up. So if you are a company that currently has ransomware insurance or is looking at cybersecurity insurance, those requirements have gone up quite a bit. It used to be just two-factor authentication was what you needed, but you need a lot more now. Siloing, patching, a lot of the things that Patrick attested to earlier. We find that now in 2022, or by the end of the year, the projected ransomware costs are going to go up over $20 billion. And what's even scarier than that is over the next 6 years, those costs are expected to go upwards to 57 times more that amount. So ransomware is not something that is going away. It is going to be a prevalent problem, but we need to do what we can, stay vigilant, stay safe, make sure you're doing everything that you can to keep your company as safe and secure as possible. You know, ransomware used to be the fact that, you know, you would get hit with ransomware, you would get this email or this message saying, hey, pay us this amount of money and we'll release your files, maybe. But now it's a lot more sinister. They're destroying backups. They will steal your credentials. They want to leak your information on the dark web, and they'll go after your customers and your clients as well. So again, be wary of that. It's not just holding your data at ransom. In some cases, they can really put you out of business. And unfortunately, a ransomware attack is going to happen about once every 14 seconds. So let's really stay vigilant, stay safe, because this is a huge problem. So it's not a question of if this is going to happen to you. It's a matter of when. You're going to get, you're going to be attacked. But the thing we need to do is make sure that we know the red flags, we know what to look out for, and we stay as safe as possible. And the first thing that we can do is we can educate those employees. Because whether you have internet access, you have an email address, part-time, full-time, it doesn't matter who you are. It only takes one person to make your network, your company susceptible to danger to these cyber hackers. So what you need to do is make sure that when this guy pops up, he's asking for your username and your password to log into your network, that you're not fooled into thinking that he's someone that he's really not. You need to make sure that you know the red flags, what to look out for. And that's what I want to talk to you all about with my time today. Because the number one thing that you can do, you can buy firewalls and antivirus and patching. You definitely need to do all those things. But the number one thing that you need to do is have a discussion with your employees. some type of organization-wide cybersecurity training. They need to know from the top to the bottom, all the way from the owner of the company to that part-time employee. Everybody needs to know the same verbiage. They need to know the same red flags, what to look out for, because again, it doesn't take 5, it doesn't take 20. It only takes one person to make your network susceptible to a data breach or a ransomware attack. So a lot of terms that I could throw out at you. I'm on the clock, so I'm not going to throw all of these at you, but I do want to talk about the one in the middle, phishing, because it is a term that everyone needs to know. A lot of people on this panel definitely know this. Everybody on the panel side does. A lot of our attendees may know it, but as long as there's one person that I can reach, that's worth it. So a phishing attempt is the act of defrauding your employees for financial information, company data, just your username and password. And sometimes they will pose as someone that you know. So it's going to come via email. It's going to look like a legitimate request for something, some sort of information. Again, it may even be just a simple login. Hey, can you log into your account? But these attacks are happening on a daily basis. They are going to come to your network. Our spam filters do an excellent job of catching these, but it does not catch 100% of these phishing emails, and they are going to get into your inbox. So please know what to look out for, because out of all the statistics that I could throw out at you, the one in the middle is the most important. We found that 91% of the cyber attacks that happen to small to medium businesses are going to originate by a phishing email. They're going to happen in your inbox. Someone is going to click on a hyperlink or download an attachment that they shouldn't have, or they're going to give up company credentials, your usernames, passwords, any sort of company data. And that is how these cyber attackers are getting into your network. That's how they're corrupting your data. So this is a typical phishing email. This is an example of a phishing email. I've trained myself to look at these emails. The first place that my eyes go is the top of the email. I want to find out who sent this email to me. I'm not looking at the name. I'm not concerned about the name. I want to look at the actual email address. It looks as if it's originating from PayPal. There's a problem with my account. They want me to log in. That's great, but I want to look at the domain that it's coming from. And if that does not say at paypal.com, I know that PayPal did not send this to me. The second thing in the middle that I want to look at, PayPal is a multi-billion-dollar company. I think they can afford an editor on staff. But if you see any grammatical errors, spelling errors, punctuation errors, that is another red flag. A lot of times these phishing emails originate from overseas somewhere. They're constructed in their native dialect, and then they rely on online translators depending on the country that they're sending these to. So if you've ever used an online translator, they're not always 100%. Some things fall through the cracks. So again, if you see just obvious errors like this in the body of an email from a company that really should know better, it's probably because it did not originate from PayPal. The next thing I want you to look at as you're reading the email, there's probably going to be some sort of social engineering tactic within the body of this email. They want to make it seem like there's some sort of problem with your account. They want to incite panic or fear or concern in you. You need to take care of this today. Click this link or the FBI is going to come and get you. Some sort of social engineering verbiage in there that's going to say, hey, I need to click this link and I need to give them my password. Well, please don't do that, because this did not come from PayPal. And obviously what they want you to do is click that obnoxiously long login button at the very bottom and give up your credentials to paypal.com. But instead of doing that, what you can do for any hyperlink is you can hover on top of that hyperlink, and it will actually tell you the target link, where that link is going to send you. And if it doesn't say HTTP, www.paypal.com, then I know it's not sending me to the correct site. So there's no need for me to do that. If I want to find out what's going on my PayPal account, I'll pick up my phone, click the app, or I'll go to paypal.com myself. I'm not going to do that via this link that I don't know where it's going to send me. So again, look out for these red flags. Talk to your employees about these red flags, because again, I could have stopped at step 1 when I saw that the domain was not at paypal.com. A lot of data breaches that are happening almost on a daily basis. Some companies that we do business with always getting data breaches on the regular. So it's really important, again, for your company not to end up on that list. And what we find is that 81% of all the data breaches that happen with small businesses happen because your user credentials were compromised. Somehow your username and password got out there in the open. So think about some ways that your passwords can get out there. How are these people corrupting your passwords that you have? And again, more than half of the time, it's through the means of a phishing email. They'll send these emails out. They will ask you, hey, we need you to log into your Microsoft account. Can you put your username and password in? And then they're off to the races. A lot of times you're not even aware that your username and password has been compromised. You'll see number 2 on that list. The second way that these usernames and passwords get out is just good old fashioned sharing them with your coworkers. Someone's login doesn't work. You give your login to someone else and say, here, you can use mine. You jot it down on a Post-it note. It ends up on your monitor somewhere. The cleaning crew takes it the next day. Who knows where it's going on from there? There's a lot of different ways that these passwords get out. Do pay attention to password duplication. That is a huge one. Raise your hand out there if you've got the same password for more than 2 or 3 sites. That's pretty much everybody. A lot of people have that one go-to password that they may change the number on or add an exclamation point at the end when it comes time to change it. The problem is if your mobile banking password is the same as your Netflix or Disney Plus password, then we've got a huge problem, because if Netflix or Disney Plus has a data breach and they get away with your username and password, now they're going to try that same combination on LinkedIn, on PayPal, on Amazon, on Facebook, on your mobile banking. They'll try all the banks in the Mid-South area. So make sure that you have unique passwords for certain sites. I know it's impossible for a lot of people to have a unique password for each and every site that they visit. Sometimes we've got upwards to 100, 200 different logins that we're trying to keep up with. But a password manager might be a good way to eliminate password duplication. But really think about that. Unique passwords for nothing else. Have a unique password for anything that is work related, and also anything financially related. Your mobile banking definitely should have a unique password, because a data breach is going to end up costing the average company about $4.2 million to recover from. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that those usernames and passwords stay safe and secure, because they result in 81% of the data breaches that are happening nowadays. Hopefully this graphic catches your attention. It is meant to. Again, passwords are like your underpants. Please change them often, keep them private, and never ever share them with anyone else. Make sure those passwords are yours alone, and you're changing them on a regular basis. Speaking of changing those, I get this question all the time. How long should my password be? Should I be using capital letters, numbers, special characters? What should my password look like? And I want to end this discussion off with this, is take a look at this password. You would think that using a word like troubadour and then adding special characters, numbers, capital letters, you would think that this is solid, safe, secure. There's no way anybody is going to guess this password. But the thing is that hackers aren't sitting there just typing at the keystrokes trying to guess your password. They're using sophisticated software that is doing guesses at rapid speeds. So something that complex you would think is safe, but it's going to take 3 days for a hacker with software that's doing about 1,000 guesses a second to crack that password. It's very easy for someone to guess that password, but it's extremely difficult for the human brain to remember an obscure word like troubadour and where you put the 3, the ampersand, or did you have a capital letter at the beginning or the end. It's going to be extremely difficult for you to remember that. So the FBI did a study, and they said, instead of using these complex passwords, what we should be doing is be using passphrases. Take 4 random words that make no sense whatsoever, but to anybody except the user. You can make a story in your head. It could be something funny that only you know about, but think of 4 random words, string them together, and the same software that took 3 days to crack that complex password would take 550 years for correct horse battery staple strung together as one passphrase to be cracked. So again, extremely easy for the user to remember, but hard for someone to crack. Okay, so that's what we want to think about. So the next time it comes time to correct or to change your password, think about past phrases rather than past words, because I think really the length of the word is going to trump the complexity of it almost every time. So really think about past phrases. I'm going to end it there. I want you to really think before you click on anything. Have those discussions with your employees, because that's something free of charge that you can do right away. I know that affordable was one of the hot topics in the title of this webinar, and I'm the cheapest person on this panel, so I definitely wanted to touch on the affordable side. But all of you small business owners out there, please have those security discussions with your employees, because it doesn't matter how robust your hardware or software is. In the end, the person behind the keyboard is the gatekeeper to the security of your network. So please think about that. Thank you.
Okay, so how do I say wow, Chris? Chris Wow Yancey. That's all I can say.
I appreciate it. Thank
Security
you.
with small businesses. Owner is the IT.
Yeah.
You can just see him, her with multiple hats, right? Big derby hat, little bitty hat, because you are it.
Yep.
I saw your screen, and it had a hand, and it had the dollar sign in it. That you can either be collecting money from your business or paying money because of the security impact.
Absolutely.
You said real talk, education. Ransomware has gone nuclear. Now, you know that made me nervous because we got this little global event going on. That's the last word I want to hear right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I understand.
800% increase since this conflict began. And we're all connected. We already said that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Insurance requirements have gone up. No, the silo and patching. Insurance, so if you're late to the game, there might be a sticker shock. $20 billion ransomware impact just for by the time we get to the end of this year. Destroying your backup. They may be sitting and waiting.
Yes.
One every 14 seconds. Stay safe. Not if, but when. Educate your employees, part-time, full-time. Email, internet access. Don't be fooled. Talk to your employees from the top to the bottom, the president to the junior associate. Same story, same message. Get an email, start at the top. If that domain doesn't make sense to you, it probably is not right. Grammatical errors, look in the middle. The social engineering, insight panic, don't be scared. Don't give them your password, banking information, or other credentials, birthday, driver's license. Careful when you call that phone number. Listen to who's on the other end. Don't share your credentials with your co-workers. Treat them like the thing closest to your body. That'd be your underwear. Change them often and never share. Security should not be easy, I think is what I heard you say. You need to have a unique password. Forget that. Have a passphrase because it's going to take that computer 550 years to guess it. Oh my God. Fantastic. You gentlemen have just totally, I've used all my paper, but I'm going to keep my notes because this has just absolutely been fantastic. I saw some questions in the chat. I am going to run to those. We do have a few hot minutes. And in the chat, first question, Kim Wilson Bond says, should a small business invest in making their building a smart building? Anyone particular, just jump in.
Hi, Lachelle.
I do see that.
We see that going in specifically for new construction all the time, especially when you have LEED certified windows and those kinds of things. You have to do something on the inside of the building to be able to get some things to work. And also you want the landscaping to only water the beds when it hasn't been raining, those kinds of things. So we see new construction usually automatically goes in with a smart facility design, but on existing buildings, you have to build a little bit of infrastructure inside to do that. And you don't want project number one to be saddled with that infrastructure cost. So there are things that you might need to do to make an existing building a smart building. And it could be Wi-Fi, cellular, private cellular, Bluetooth, those kinds of things. But try to make sure that there's an enterprise thought to how you do that instead of making specific projects. Put in independent systems, because then you'll end up with things that are different point solutions, and security problems tend to crop up when you don't have a good view of the overall enterprise.
Let me add something to that. I do a lot of projects for our customers, especially if they move to a new building. There's been a lot of that going on the past few years too. Companies have either been downsizing facilities or just moving because it was a good opportunity to get it done. Whomever you work with on your smart devices in your facility, make sure, as was just mentioned, that you work with your networking people, whoever it is, either your internal people or your networking provider, to make sure that those devices are isolated from what we consider your production network. It can cause all kinds of weird problems. Oftentimes security companies want to come in and maybe plug in all of your cameras and all of your sensors for your alarm system into your main network where all of your servers and computers communicate with one another. Usually those systems only need some sort of internet access in order to be monitored, in order to work properly. So please make sure that you get those either logically or physically isolated from the network where your people are working.
Okay.
Lachelle, I do see that someone gave an example of what a strong password could be. So either one of you can look at that, but Chris, this might be a great thing for you if you have some type of leave behind that I could share out so that all of our attendees can look and see what would be a great example of a strong password.
Yeah, and so I was noticing that in the chat. I believe John had put that that password in. So he's got flower. He changes the W. Well, he adds a capital B in the middle and then a capital CC in the middle. And so, John, not to burst your bubble, but I'm going to say no. I don't think that is a secure password because it's again the software that these hackers are using take common words, and then they will run through different strains of adding different digits, numbers, letters to those common words. And so that is one of a classic example of a password that it may only take a few days to crack. Whereas, again, using 3 or 4 unrelated words and simply stringing those together. And I know a lot of password requirements require you to use numbers or special characters now, and there's nothing wrong with adding that to a passphrase. But I would definitely use at least 3 different unique words to create a new password. And again, it only needs to make sense to you. And as long as it does, you'll remember it. But stringing those words together is going to take a lot longer for that software to crack than just one common word. So.
Well,
Hey,
I just want to
I
go
was going to
ahead.
say, Patricia, listen, I know what you told me, so I'm going to stop right now because I don't want to be the reason that you run over. I have thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, thank you, Lachelle, and all of our panelists. Wow, this hour went by really fast. I hope that each and every one of you were taking notes as feverishly as me and Lachelle were. I do just say any of our panelists, if you have anything that you would like me to share with our attendees, I'm happy to pass that along. Wanted to give you a reminder for any events that we have. Please check out memphischamber.com. Next Thursday, we will have business over breakfast. That's at 7:30 a.m. And so I'm going to send the information about that, but please check out our website. Again, thank you so much for joining us for this really timely opportunity for you to know more about IT, keeping it safe and cost effective as well. Lachelle, I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds.
Listen, everyone out there in cyberspace, this is fantastic. You must applaud our chamber for always doing an excellent job of making sure that we know what we need to know so that we can continue to provide those services in our community that we love. Thank you so much, Patricia and the chamber.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.